Hi, good evening, everyone. For those of you who are joining us from India, and good morning to anybody joining from US. Very welcome to today's workshop with Pivot on building your career in AI in non-tech roles. Super excited for this one. We have Siya Raj Purohit with us. She's backstage. She's very excited to join us in a matter of moments. Sia and I have been discussing about doing this workshop for a while now for a community of people because um, AI is everywhere, and who better to hear about building a career in AI than somebody who's working at world's arguably the number one company leading the charge on AI today, which is OpenAI. And so I'm sure you guys have read about Sia on our community pages, on our social media everywhere. She's currently leading education at OpenAI, and she is also co-founder and general partner for Pathway Ventures, where she invests in early stage startups on the future of learning and work. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Sia on stage. Just give me 1 second. There we go. Hey, Sia. Good
Hi,
morning.
hi everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for making time for this. Super excited for this. I know you've been going around doing a lot of workshops and events. So I hope, things have been going well for you.
It's been so exciting. I mean, education and AI is just like such an interesting space to be in right now. And I think that we can finally solve so many of the deep problems in education with AI, which I'm excited about.
Absolutely. So I think, Sia, just before we dive in, it would be helpful that we both share a quick round of intros. I had given a very simple, intro with regard to your position currently and what you're doing in terms of investing. But if you don't mind, I'll just share a little bit about myself and Pivot because there might be a few people who don't know that what we do, and then again, would turn it over to you, and you can share a little bit about yourself as well. Does that sound
Perfect.
good? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. So, just in case those of you who are not part of the Pivot community yet, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Arjun, and I'm the founder of Pivot. What we do at Pivot is basically help people make smooth and successful career transitions. So, in case you're thinking about changing not just your company, but let's say your domain, your industry, your level in the organization, or even your region, so moving countries, these are all different inflection points that we help people accomplish. And there are a couple of different solutions through which we do this, and we'll talk more about it during the course of this conversation. But thank you again so much for joining us on this Thursday evening. And yeah, I'll turn it over to Sia. Sia, feel free to share whatever you want in a brief manner how you have kind of traversed your career and landed where you are today.
So, one thing interesting for the audience is that Arjun and I have been friends since we were 14. We went to high school together. So, we have known each other for a very long time now, which is amazing. And I'm very excited to again be here. My career in education started around when I was 18. When I was in college, I realized that colleges were not teaching the skills that universities, like that industry, wanted from university students. So I did a research project that became a book about America's job skills gap, realizing that this was a problem happening at scale. And as a result, so many students were being locked out of their potential because they weren't able to land good jobs after college. So my career has been focused on helping bridge that gap, trying to make education much more accessible for people. So in my career, I've been early at a couple of education startups, Udacity and Springboard. I worked on the venture side at GSV Ventures, investing in EdTech companies. And then for the past 3 years, I was at AWS doing Amazon's education partnerships. I joined OpenAI about 5 months ago, and I work on our go-to-market team. So basically, helping make ChatGPT EDU successful at universities.
Perfect. So there is definitely a commitment to a cause here, right? It seems like you've been doing this for quite some time, and always good to see people who follow their passion and are able to actually make an impact through that, because a lot of times people are not able to follow their passion or not able to make the impact that they wanted to create. So kudos on that. See, I think it's probably a great inspiration for a lot of other people who have strong commitment towards a certain cause. I think just to get things started for this particular workshop, the first thing that I wanted to tackle is more to understand kind of how AI has been evolving pretty rapidly over the last couple of months, not even years. Where you have now the new GPT-4 model, and you have Claude making certain announcements with regard to how AI is evolving very quickly, where it can create AI agents to use computer software, etc. Um, so there's a lot of buzz around how AI is emerging very, very rapidly. And because our workshop is focusing more on folks who might not be from the tech background, it's not always easy to decipher what those points of evolution are, besides using, let's say, chat gpt for some of the very basic things that they might be doing on the day to day, right? So I think it would help our audience kind of break down a little bit how they should be navigating these new emerging trends in AI, and understanding whether they should a integrate AI into their day-to-day work, and b, if they're in non-tech roles like, let's say, sales, marketing, HR, finance, how should they think about building their career within the field of AI if they so choose?
Great question. So, I've worked in education for about 12 years now. And in education, personalized tutoring was always the holy grail. We were like, if we can accomplish this, things will become so much easier for learners around the world. And
Mhm.
I think that with ChatGPT, we have accomplished it. I have a personalized tutor that I talk to all day, every day. ChatGPT knows about the projects I'm working on, like the aspirations I have for my career, the skills I'm working on, and it keeps providing me feedback. And I think that everyone should be taking advantage of this and just kind of building their own support system with ChatGPT. And so some of the ways that I use it are like this use case actually an MBA student explained to me, which I think is very helpful for everyone, is that they have a chat thread with ChatGPT called Talk Like an Executive, where they keep copy pasting emails that they're writing into the chat thread, and it helps elevate their language to sound like an executive's. And this is like such a nice like hack almost at ChatGPT, but it helps elevate all the communication people write. So like these kind of examples, or when I work on projects, it remembers the past projects I did and helps build upon them. So I
Mhm.
think as a knowledge worker, it's like an essential tool that people need to have. And being comfortable talking to ChatGPT and articulating what project you're working on and where it can support is a super essential skill people need to have.
No, absolutely. I think ChatGPT definitely has kind of democratized use of AI in people's day-to-day careers and lives for sure. And I think some of the use cases that you've talked about in terms of using it as a personal tutor, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think no matter which field you are in, I think you can do that. You can help understand, for example, if you're an HR professional, some of the latest emerging trends that might be coming out in different subdomains of HR. Like, you have compensation benefits, you have performance management. You can also probably learn about how to integrate technology better with HR use cases. All of that's there. But now let's say I'm a professional who's worked for 7 8 years in HR, right? And I don't have any knowledge of AI apart from using chat gpt. And I fear, there is this fear, whether or not it's true. We can at least admit that there are a lot of folks who are fearful about AI displacing them, or displacing at least some part of their job. And they're thinking about, okay, how can I future proof myself better, where companies are not displacing me just because they can hire AI agents to do what I do. And then apart from that, maybe even if it's not the fear, even if it's more, let's say, an opportunity driven mindset or growth driven mindset, where somebody's thinking about, okay, I have achieved whatever I can in my career so far, but I want to take things next level now. For those folks, how do you think they should either add new responsibilities to their job description, or perhaps do the same things that they have been doing in HR or whichever field in a more productive manner, in a more effective manner? Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Something I read on Twitter, which I really resonated with, was that it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's someone who knows how to use AI well. And
Hmm.
so, in order to prepare for your job in the future, I think just being able to figure out how to use AI to do better as a knowledge worker is going to become important. There is a class at Harvard Business School that a professor named Jay Cook teaches. It's focused on digital marketing. And he's like, digital marketing rules won't change, but what's going to happen is that every step of the way, you need to involve more AI. So his class he's changed in the way that when you start doing user research, you input all of the information into ChatGPT. It kind of provides like different types of summaries that you're able to utilize. When you build an ad campaign, you can scrape the web and create new like assets with ChatGPT. You can create new social images with ChatGPT. Basically, every step he involves that kind of product. And it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, it can be any AI product that you're interested in. But the idea is think about areas where you can streamline your work with AI and thus be able to produce more work faster or become more creative with that, like kind of ideate with it. I love using it as a thought partner when I go back and forth on different types of exercises. I'm like, this is the type of project I'm thinking of building. How can I elevate my thinking? Or
Yeah.
like, this is like my aspiration. What can be a bigger scope of work that I can take on? And use ChatGPT as a leverage to broaden those thoughts.
Yeah, brilliant examples. I think, in terms of marketing, the use cases probably have been uh, a lot more than what people initially thought beyond just content writing and content creation. I think in terms of, coming up with creative ad campaign ideas, I think and beyond that, kind of measuring your campaigns and analyzing what's working, what's not working. There's so many different ways to do that. But again, a lot of folks, when they think about AI, one of the potential downside that they sometimes come across is, okay, if I'm going to be outsourcing some of the key parts of my job, then am I kind of diminishing my skill set in any form or fashion because I'm utilizing that part of my brain less, or I'm utilizing that part of my skill set less. And second is, even if, let's say, I try to elevate my game, so it's not necessarily about outsourcing, it's about trying to see how I can do new things in a different way, which I haven't been able to do so far. How do I build that skill set? How do I even know that these are the right prompts that I should be giving in chat gpt, or something else that I need to do, like learn more about AI as a technology, to be able to use AI more effectively.
So I think this concern, I understand that, but it's similar to, I think, the skill that previous generations learned about how to use encyclopedias to find information. And we all obviously were the Google era, and we were able to find it much more quickly. So basically, ChatGPT is just enabling us to engage with knowledge in a very different way, in a much deeper conversational way. And I think as a skill, that's really important to pick up because, like prompt engineering, people keep asking whether that's a skill that should be taught or not. I think behind that, there's like a deeper question that needs to be answered and taught, which is how do you articulate what you're looking for effectively? And the ability to communicate that is super important. One really interesting example here is there's a professor at Wharton who was talking to me about like how he's changing his class assignments. He's like, Sia, what is the value of an essay? The value of an essay is not actually in its output, it's in the critical thinking and communication skills that go into assembling a good essay. So instead, how he's changed his class, which used to have a final assignment of an essay, is that students now use ChatGPT and he measures the number of prompts it takes students to get to an essay that they're satisfied with. Some students are so good at prompt engineering that it takes like 2 prompts and they have a pretty great essay. And other students have to go back and forth 19 or 20 times to get to an essay that they're happy with. So what he measures now is like a person's ability to communicate effectively on what they're looking for. And so I think this is a skill everyone needs to build. It's something that you can actually just get better at by communicating more with ChatGPT or otherwise, and getting closer and closer to what output you're looking for. A
Mhm.
different professor told me he spends 1 hour prompting, but it
Mhm.
solves a 9 hour project for him instantly when he does that. So
Wow.
just figure out how to keep practicing that and get it better at communicating.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think that is something that probably a lot of people don't understand today, and maybe we can get deeper into it in a bit. But I think when we think about prompts and prompt engineering, I think most people have a very superficial idea of what to actually ask ChatGPT or any other AI GPT tool, and get very surface level information which can be utilized, but it may not solve a very deep challenge for you. Um, I think what would be helpful if we can talk a little bit more about specific skills that might be needed for some of the non-tech roles. to be able to build your career in AI or to be able to integrate AI more effectively, I think prompt engineering and communication, like you said, is probably one of the many things that you can do to integrate AI. How does one go firstly learning how to communicate better with AI? Is it something you do just with sort of trial and error, or is there a book for dummies out there that somebody should be reading? Or what have you seen within your company, which is building this new age technology, that people who are from non-tech backgrounds are able to leverage AI more effectively than some of the other folks?
So when I was 22, I would write emails and I would make all my friends read them and be like, does this sound good enough to send to this recruiter when I was like interviewing for my first job after college? And that's something I think a lot of people can resonate with. We used to get feedback from our peers. But now we have like a super peer in that mix,
Yeah.
ChatGPT, which you can talk to about this communication. But not only that, you can also talk to ChatGPT about how you can get better at asking questions or articulating what you're looking for from ChatGPT. Like just have that conversation as if you're talking to a mentor or a peer. And then also like find examples like what ChatGPT, like when it gets good is when you can provide information. So copy
Mhm.
paste like different questions you've asked in the past or copy paste emails you've done in the past and be like, what do you think I can do to strengthen my skills here, and learn with that. A student was telling me that they didn't know SQL at all when they started a job in finance over the summer, and they just worked with ChatGPT all summer to get better at SQL, and by the end they were really good. So use this as like I'm actually very vulnerable with my instance of ChatGPT. I tell it the truth. I'm like, this is the project I'm building. This is who I'm delivering it to. This is their personality type. This is my personality type. What do you think I can do better? So be
At
very
this point, your AI knows better than you yourself know yourself, right?
so we're giving it to the manager again. We need to prepare this way. So it's just
Right.
like be very real with it because that's how you'll get the best outcomes.
Got it. Got it. And so I don't know, if you have heard this question from folks who might be, again, from non-tech backgrounds, but a lot of them actually are unaware exactly if they should be even using AI or not. And more than using, if they should be pursuing a career in companies like which are more tech oriented, not necessarily the Microsofts and OpenAI of the world, but even a simple, let's say, like a D2C tech enabled company or like a B2B SaaS company, which has more of a tech orientation, and they might be utilizing AI in their own day-to-day operations for optimizing workflows and those kind of things, right? Now, there is that reticence or there is lack of capability in saying that, I don't think I can do this job within the tech industry because I have A, no tech background, and B, AI is coming and I have no background in AI either. How should these folks think about building their career in tech enabled industries or AI enabled industries?
So I think the very first step is to identify a sector that you're passionate about or the sector that you've been working in. Because of how much talent exists and the different types of roles that are emerging, you need to have a very clear narrative of your career path and how it fits into a new company now. So, like that subject matter expertise matters a lot. So, for people who are early career, I actually recommend quickly experimenting to find a cause that you care about. For me, I stumbled into education at 18, but for a lot of other friends, they tried out a couple of different sectors and were like, okay, this is what I care about. So get that piece early and then start building a narrative around that. Because AI is a technology and a suite of other technologies, but your ability to present your career path as someone who cares about the product or the mission and then can leverage different types of technology to advance their goals in the career matter a lot.
Mhm.
So I would recommend crafting the story. Like that's the story I made to OpenAI and to Amazon and to other companies I worked at in the past, being like, this is the sector I care about. This is what I think this company can do. And these are the skills I can bring. And these are the skills I can learn in this role. And make that story very clear to the recruiters that you talk to. And regarding whether to get into AI or not, an investor I really admire, Jeffrey Busgang, who's actually a professor at Harvard as well, writes about how all companies are going to be AI native in the future. Like this is not something that we can kind of avoid, and it's
Yeah.
something that we should just embrace and kind of leverage to become more productive.
Yeah, I think it's it's already here. I think for people who are thinking about, potentially avoiding it, it's kind of like you're in the 90s and trying to avoid using internet or computer for the first time. I think it's going to be very hard, no matter what age or experience level you are at. You will have to navigate AI in some form or fashion. Or going back to that quote, even if you're not dealing with AI yourself, there's a high risk you will be replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI, right, better than you. um, I think that makes sense. I love the part about, building a cause or understanding what you care about the most, because ultimately that's what will excite you about the potential of this technology, right? Because AI has so many different heads and it can be focused on different directions, right? But you need to give it your direction, which will ultimately create an impact for you in your career and for the organization that you work with. So I think, yeah, understanding what you care about the most, that's very, very relevant advice. We have a lot of questions that are starting to come in from the audience, and we'll be taking them up very soon as well. Um, but Sia, just before we dive into the queries from folks who have joined us, there are a lot of people we help at Pivot who are either changing careers, who are navigating the current job market. And you know how it is, right? Like, the job market is not easy right now. I mean, you've been able to make a transition at this precarious time, which a lot of people are not able to. And a lot of them are actually utilizing AI, whether it's through ChatGPT or other tools. They are also thinking about, like we have been discussing, building their careers in AI, so trying to future proof themselves. Any job search specific advice? I know you already touched upon it, how you have navigated paths when you are switching companies. So actually, you can answer it in a broad way, or you could even talk about the specific action items that you work on. Let's say when you transition from Amazon to OpenAI, what was the narrative that you crafted for OpenAI to make them see your potential in partnering with you on the educational GTM?
So I'll actually take this answer back a couple years. It's like, as I mentioned, I've worked in education for a while, and almost every role that I've had was actually like created for me in some ways. The companies at Udacity, Springboard, GSV, and how this happened, and it doesn't happen all the time because there are hundreds of other companies I must have applied to that didn't create those roles for me. So this is not like a foolproof method. But I think the best way to do this is to first of all deeply understand the company. When I was in college, I studied so much about Udacity, which was an emerging education company at that time in 2014, 2015. And it was like ushering in the year of the MOOCs, the online courses that were taking off at that time. And so I studied deeply about the company. I got to know the people, and I applied for a role that wasn't a relevant fit, but it was like the one that I was qualified for at that time. It was like a computer science instructor like role, and I wasn't great to be a computer science instructor, but I used that time to get to know the team more and be able to kind of position where I could add value. I'm scrappy, I'm young, I can put in all these hours to do all of these different types of projects within the company. And so
Mhm.
being able to showcase that fit very obviously mattered a lot. And in the years since, I've spent a lot of time doing that pre-work. Like, I create all sorts of like what they call assessments now in the recruiting process, but I do that beforehand. I'm like, this is where like I can add value. So being like invested in the company that you care about and being able to tell that story in a very clear way to them matters a lot. So taking a step back, like, have clarity on your own career narrative, create a lot of content around that. Like, I wrote a lot of like thought leadership pieces online. I wrote a lot of like deep research insights into companies I cared about, and then position where you can add value and communicate that clearly to the recruiting team.
Yeah, it kind of turns the whole job search advice over its head, because a lot of times people focus more on applying blindly to hundreds of jobs and, not really hearing back from companies. And then, the counter intuitive approach that people end up taking then is like, okay, I've been pretty selective on what I've been applying to so far, even though I've applied to 100 jobs and not heard back. Maybe I need to expand it further and let me think about other roles outside of the ones that I have been applying to. So they think they can maximize the surface area of opportunities by kind of diluting the focus that they have. And I think what you have talked about is kind of the opposite, right? You need to drill down a little bit more about the niches that you care about and and kind of build your foundation on top of that, and then that's where the job search strategies kind of they permeate into something more specific, where companies can understand why you would be the best person for that role, because you have spent not just a job, but you have kind of built your entire career around that narrative, right? Something along those lines.
Absolutely. And also build a community around you and for the sector. So even when I was 22, I was bringing all these education people who were also 22 at that time together, and we would like talk about the sector. We'd kind of grow that community out to figure out areas where we can add value to that sector. And now my friends have all grown up and done all these different things in the sector too, which is like, I mean, that network helps you land jobs much better than like cold applying online. And
Yeah.
if you don't have a community, to start one or join one to help move that forward.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. I mean, for all the EdTech events that have happened in New York, firstly, really appreciate you inviting me. But I think you can see the power of community when you go to some of these events. How connected people are and how open they are to helping each other when they need to collaborate on new projects, or even with job search and things like those. So yeah, I mean, I think the power of community cannot be overstated, and definitely one of the key things that we at Pivot also try to drive for our community as well. So I think maybe we can dive into some of the questions. I'm sure people are looking for some personalized advice and personalized input from you. So one of the questions that we have here is from Kritika, and I'm going to pull up the question here on the screen so everybody can see it. So Kritika's question is, for marketers interested in AI, would you recommend specializing in a specific vertical like education, or should we keep a broader focus? I think we just touched upon this, but again, it's a good question, and I'm sure one that a lot of people are going through. So yeah, feel free to go ahead, Sia.
The roles that I'm seeing right now in the industry, this might change, but the roles I'm seeing right now are very hyper personalized. So they're looking for someone who has that sector experience and that skill set. And the reason that those two are distinguished is because that sector experience just helps you leverage those specific nuances of an industry much more effectively for your company. And my gut says that roles will continue staying that hyper personalized because we're also making education hyper personalized for students. So I really think that industry is going to stay very specific. So my recommendation is to pick a vertical, go very deep, identify all the major companies that you might be interested in that vertical, build those relationships, and then try to land those jobs.
Great. I think very pointed, and that's how I like the answers, because they're the most helpful and productive. We have another question which is slightly longer, so I'll quickly try to summarize it. But it's less of a question. I think it's more of a potential disadvantage to non-tech folks that Summer has pointed out here. He said that the problem is that almost every AI job either wants a PhD or computer science, machine learning, a 5 years experience in the field, even if you have self-taught it to yourself. And I feel like that's been the reality for me, even for positions where health AI experts want a PhD or ML. So I think the question is probably more centered around the fact that a lot of the jobs people are seeing require prior experience in AI/ML, when AI/ML in itself is a very nascent field, at least from the way things are today. So how do you tackle this kind of a situation? And this is something that actually I've seen across different types of skill requirements. Yeah, AI is obviously one of the biggest skill set that companies are looking for today. But apart from that, if you go to LinkedIn and you spend maybe a day, you will come across at least two or three posts which talk about how some companies are looking for prior work experience from people who are freshers, right? So I mean, it's kind of that chicken or egg equation, right, where you don't really know what comes first. So yeah, maybe you can share more about that.
I deeply understand this problem. Like, it's something that education and as an industry has been trying to fight for so long, being like degrees should not be the bar. So I deeply resonate with this. But the truth is that we can't change these job descriptions, right? Like, if that's what they want, that's what they want. What I do recommend in terms of getting ahead and still being able to land a great job that might not be this job is to figure out how to showcase your expertise in different ways without that traditional experience. So when I was in college, I knew that I wanted such a different type of job in education that they like don't recruit from my university for that role. So I'm like, how can I position myself to be that unique? So I published a book about America's job skills gap. I built a startup. I showcased my product skills in that small startup that we ran. And then I came back and I'm like, hey, this is why I should do product in education because I have that expertise and I have this, even though I'm 21, 22 at this time.
Mhm.
So I think the same holds now. Build very unique projects, build the right type of community, build the right types of thought leadership pieces. And this is something that anyone has the tools to do immediately. And that will show the depth of your knowledge and experiences that you're able to then communicate to land a role which might be relevant for your interests.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Okay. I think there's still probably going to be a skewed kind of you know, skewed part of the job market, which is going to be hard to navigate for a lot of people who don't have that technical AI background. But I think over a period of time, as things mature within the industry and kind of start settling down, just like they have for prior technologies that have emerged, do you see that there are going to be more opportunities for folks who might have less experience in AI, or do you think it's going to continue and remain generally the same, where the tech requirements are only going to become more and more stringent from organizations?
I also don't think that even now all companies are requiring this because it's impossible to fill
Right.
those jobs if this is the requirement for all companies. So I
Sure.
think broadening the search while maintaining like that expertise in the sector that you're able to showcase is going to be super important even now. But yes, over time there will be more entry level jobs hopefully. And like if they're not, then just figure out how to up level those years faster.
Yeah. No, makes sense. All right. The other question that we have here is from Kruti, and I really like this one actually because it showcases that AI is something which people at any level, no matter how young or old you are, are thinking about using in their own way. And Kruti's question is a very important one, I would say, for high schoolers, people who are still studying before college. How do they start their career exploration journey? And I would add to Kruti's question, with AI in mind, right? So how can high schoolers think about integrating AI apart from doing their daily homework? Like, what can they do to build their careers in AI, or think about choosing certain, let's say, majors in college or career paths down the line that would be more AI integrated? Because for them, it's not just like they are trying to transition or pivot from a non-tech background to a tech background. I think they're just on the stepping stones of their career success. So how do they get started in this journey?
I was a high school journalist, so all my answers will come from that lens. But I think that the best types of ways to explore are by talking to a lot of people and things that you find interesting. And the way high school students should do that is by, first of all, using AI to identify the questions and the types of people to talk to. Reach out to them and also don't try to use one on one time because I've realized that people are too busy to provide one on one advice nowadays. So instead, be like, can you come talk to my class about this? And give them a platform that your like school or your community offers. Because then they'll be really excited to be able to talk to 30 students or 60 students and you'll get the opportunity to ask questions and learn about different segments. And I
Mm.
think that becomes really powerful. When I was writing my book, I cold emailed some really famous people who are way out of my league, like a Nobel laureate, a Supreme Court attorney. But instead of being like, let's have one on one conversations, I'm like, I want to explain this to my entire class of like 1,200 students. How can we do that? And they loved that platform, which I was able to give them as a student. And I highly recommend students use that to just discover interesting things and find out what they're passionate about.
I think that's a consistent theme throughout your journeys. Yeah, I think you have recently also been able to, have some of these sessions, these events and workshops with some of the topmost professionals in the education field. I think you spoke with some of the former secretaries of education, and probably with a similar value prop, right? That you would be able to kind of bring their insights and their brand in front of many important folks within the industry. I think that's such a simple yet powerful way to create value on both sides of the aisle, right? For the person who might be looking to share their knowledge and experiences, and at the same time for the folks who are willing to learn new things and take up AI in a new way. I think that's very powerful. Did you have any through these experiences, these events that you've been having? Were there any insights or learnings that you would like to share here that would be relevant for our audience in terms of how some of the industry doyens in AI are thinking about, or in education are thinking about, the use case for AI in the future of our careers?
What are the use cases for the future of our careers? Yeah, so I guess I spend a lot of time in the education domain. So thinking about the future of universities and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So I think that, how I'm currently thinking about AI native universities is that there will be so many different AI touch points across the university campus that students will engage with knowledge in different ways throughout the campus. So when you come to campus, there'll be some sort of orientation GPT that lets you ask questions such as like, how do I change my roommate? Or where is the best pizza spot in town? Like being able to converse with the campus's knowledge in an orientation GPT. Then
Mhm.
you're going to come into classrooms where your professors will have uploaded your course materials and you can have conversations with the course materials. One of my favorite examples is that a business school professor uploaded his case studies, and now students can ask questions like, which CEO handled layoffs well? And it pulls from that repository of information and and provides those exact answers. So that's super fascinating. You'll go
Mhm.
into career services where you'll like talk about like with alumni and be able to kind of refine your message that way. And finally in student clubs. So basically there'll be so many different AI touch points which will seamlessly move between each other as students like go through their college journey. And I'm
Mhm.
really excited about that. So those are some of the use cases we're seeing. And what I'm really excited about is just this new way to talk knowledge.
Right. Yeah, I think great example. I love that orientation GPT example. That's really funny. Um, I think the other thing which we haven't really focused on, and I actually haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, I'm sure maybe at your level, at your end, people are starting to at least think about it more deeply, is the way to collaborate using AI, right? So a lot of times what we are seeing, people are using AI in their own individual capacity, right? Kind of like making AI their co-pilot, their assistant, whatever you want to call it. And it's a very one-on-one relationship between you and your AI. And that's one element of how you can integrate AI into your life. But I think the other way, which actually came out when I think OpenAI released the most recent model, where you showcased how the voice technology can be used to partner not just with the AI but with your tutor if you're a student, for example, as well, right? And in that sense, whether it's a teacher-student relationship, whether it's a mentor-mentee relationship, or a manager, direct report relationships, do you see that AI can enhance the collaboration between these, very complicated but intertwined relationships in education and workplace?
Absolutely. And we get a lot of requests for this kind of collaboration because obviously people are working together in these projects. Our OpenAI Canvas product is probably our first foray into collaborative tools, which lets you actually work with other people side by side and help kind of collaborate on different initiatives. But I think it's something that we'll keep getting better at. And right now, how I'm seeing it is that professors are creating student groups and making ChatGPT like the seventh group member in some ways and letting students engage with a custom GPT together. And I think that
Mhm.
shareability is interesting, but I think this is something that there's a lot of scope for growth in.
Understood. Got it. I think we have covered most of the key questions that I had, and I think we have covered some of the key ones that we got from the audience as well. I think people have generally loved all the experiences, stories, and insights that you have shared here today, Sia. Um, just before we come to our end, any other advice or anything else that you would like to share with our audience, and then I'll have one quick question for you just before we wrap up. Yeah.
So I think that in general, we're at a very interesting time in society because now there's this super intelligence that exists that's not in my brain or your brain. It exists in the space in between. And
Hmm.
that coupled with people's like purpose and like the piece I keep talking about of identifying what you care about and pursuing that vertical matters a lot. Because if we can raise people to have that deep sense of humanity, to want to solve these problems in the sectors, and combine that with AI skills, I think that we can achieve a lot as a society. So I'm very excited about this.
Thank you for kind of reinforcing that theme throughout this conversation of picking up a specific niche or a cause that you really deeply care about and building your career and whatever way you want to integrate AI on those lines, using that as the foundation. I think that's a brilliant message, and I hope people who have joined us are able to take that at least one core message away, if not the hundreds others that you have shared today. My quick question to you is, if let's say there was somebody who was kind of like a beginner in AI, is there any book, any movie, any video, any one thing, course that you would suggest that everybody should read? Like, it's broad enough for being applicable in almost anybody's lives, and they and can help them understand AI and its use cases better.
Interesting. Um, I think that we're going to actually see a lot of more great content on this. I think right now, following the influencers who are helping like lead the way, like Ethan Mollick from the University of Pennsylvania at Wharton School, following influencers like that, and Professor Karthik Hosanagar also at Wharton, Jeffrey Busgang at HBS, follow their content because the books are getting outdated really quickly. There were two big books in education and AI that came out earlier this year, and a lot of the stuff is already outdated. So, what I recommend is follow these leaders and actually learn about their work directly instead.
Great, great. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Sia, for joining us today. This was brilliant. I think for a lot of people, there are doubts and confusions about how AI is going to play a role within their careers, and you helped dispel some of the myths, and brought more factual information, and also insights based on your experience working in the field. So really appreciate that. And for people who joined us today, I hope you were able to take away something that you can actually apply into your day-to-day careers. Um, but thank you again once for joining us on your Thursday morning, Sia, and for people who are in India on your Thursday evening.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good rest of it.